Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and one of the things that just recently happened on my Discord servers, we got into a bit of a discussion about how best to set up mono-element runs, and the reason that discussion came up is simply because one of my viewers has been having a hard time setting up mono-element runs and was looking for tips. And even though I did drop a good number of tips on the table at the time, as did one of our other members on the Discord server, I figured it would be a better idea to illustrate the points I was trying to get across. So, for the first time, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of insight into how I build. So, first things first, we need to know which element we're working with. And by the way, there is going to be a bit of noise going on, as I do have the weather is nice. I have the window open. That means that there are birds outside that are making my birds want to communicate. You know, just saying. There's going to be a little bit of noise. If it gets to be too much noise, like say someone decides to run a fucking lawnmower, then yeah, I'll close the window. As of right now, things are looking pretty nice. Alright. So, what we have coming up here is a part of my creation. Pardon me. Oh, there I go. You're a sleepy bitch. But this is the part of the run creation process that isn't normal. And that would be the selection of the elements. Now, I could just go full-on randomizer for every spell, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, let's just pick which one element we're going to focus on. So, fire, wind, earth, lightning, water. Okay, Google. Pick a number between 1 and 5.
2.
Interesting. So, if you guys heard that, that means we're going with wind. Curiously, let's... Okay, Google. Roll a d5.
You got 2.
I mean, it's 2 no matter how I do it, so... It is interesting, though, that it knows what a d5 is, even though such a thing doesn't freaking exist. Alright, so, since we are going with wind, that begs the question of what is wind particularly good at? Wind is generally, it's not saying that this is all wind does, but it's generally good at multiple hits and slowing enemies down via either the slow status effect or just straight up holding enemies still in an area. So that having been said, I think the best road to go with since it does focus primarily on multiple hits, I think I'm gonna go with, let's see, do I go with Awe or do I go with... I do think Awe is the best choice for this particularly. So, you know, Mage of the Golden Wind, don't read too far into that. So, about the only wind elemental dash that I like is Razor Burst. Now, some of you may have differing opinions as that plays a pretty good job of keep away. Yeah, that one's odd. Now, that's something that you do if you want to pull enemies towards you, like if you're, say, building a melee build build where the whole point is to manipulate enemies into your face. I'm sorry, apparently I'm ultra sleepy today. Or I just woke up, one of the two. But I like Razor Burst because it not only does a good job of controlling the field, but it also slows enemies. So it just gives you a lot of time to react and think. So now our basics. We got Wind Slash, ugh. We got Severing Slash, ugh. Air Spinner, yay. And Perforating Jet. This one's a little iffy. Now keep in mind I have Closet Tomo up from my previous build. But what you have here is range and a particularly interesting not interaction, but a particularly interesting shot pattern where it's just a series of small wind darts. Now, it has a lot of potential, but because of how it works, it is also very possible to only hit enemies with one or two of the darts, making the damage negligible. It still does a good job at control, and as I had mentioned earlier, that's what Wind does very well, is control. But, I think for our purposes, we're going to be going with Air Spinner. Air Spinner is tried and true, it does a lot of damage, it keeps you covered in a 360-degree arc. That would be a circle genius. Oh, yeah. And once you get it upgraded, it fires 2 of those spinning discs at once. Now, it doesn't do a lot for your signature charge, as you were seeing, but that is okay, because we can make up for that. Next, let's look at our signature options. So, Spiraling Typhoon is one of those spells that, I don't know, it's a little too close range for my particular taste. It does a lot of damage, but you also have to hold yourself still like the entire time. It just seems, yeah, not good. This is a good get off me option, but considering that we're going with Air Spinner, probably not all that useful. And as a signature, that is just horrible. Yeah, the one dummy took 200, but if you're not aiming it exactly perfectly, you're not getting that damage. So, Tearing Whirlwind. This is another good one for if you're comboing, but... See, and at the end, it still leaves enemies right in your face, so unless you have something to handle that, you're just going to end up harming yourself more than anything else. And there is a combo between Tearing Whirlwind and Heroic Blaze. Obviously, we're not going to be using that because that would involve, having something non-wind. My other issue, of course, is that, of course, that would involve Heroic Blaze, which holds you still. And yeah, you know how I feel about things that hold you still. Shearing Chain is typically pretty good, but it really shines in a Dark Katana build, which is not what we're going for. Let's see, Wind Flurry. And then its signature. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's controlling. Don't get me wrong, it's controlling. It can be fun. See, Storm Draft has a very interesting mechanic of doing more damage to enemies as it slaps them into walls. And again, it's a very good get-off-me option, at least in a single direction, but I don't know. Fading Petal. Now, that is particularly good if you're really tired and need a drink. So that draws enemies towards you, which makes it, again, good for a melee combo build. Although I don't think it does as good of a job as Aqua Vortex does, so take it with a grain of salt. Oh yeah, and its signature version. So, kind of a similar thing, doesn't do the greatest damage. I don't know, it's very iffy. So this now leaves us with Gust Volley, which by itself doesn't do great damage, but yeah. Now this does have the added bonus of being good to shotgun enemies with. But again, as you can see, we can do better than that. Flame Fusion kind of by itself tends to do better than that. So that leaves us with Cyclone Boomerang, which I really like. It's highly damaging for what it does, and it has a very quick cooldown. See, the only reason I'm not going with that is because I'm not running a hyper-focused melee build. There are some things that work well close range, but on the whole, that's not what I want to be doing. Which leaves us with the Blurring Falconry, which I think is pretty much Wynn's best signature. There are arguments to be made for Cyclone Boomerang, of course, and I honestly think that Shearing Chain is better when you're going with a kind of melee-focused Dark Katana build, but ultimately the Falconry wins the day. This just leaves us with our standard. Now, those of you who know me well know that I like to keep my enemies a little outside of arm's reach, or arm's length is the word I'm trying to use. And some of the best spells for that would be Furious Tempest, Wind Sentry, Breaking Twister. All of those are particularly good. Mentis Imperium is a really good one that's I like using to mess with my enemies. Mock Stunner is also really good at controlling an area if I can find it. It's Stormdraft. Where's Mock Stunner? There it is. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does control space. But I think for my purposes, I'm going to go with Breaking Twister. My only issue with Breaking Twister is that it just keeps traveling. So once it gets upgraded, it will actually just stop. And it stops at about there. So it's a great combo piece. But, now that I think about it again, it does have the unfortunate drawback of basically not working well with things that knock enemies around like the Burning Falconry does. So we're going to go with Furious Tempest. Furious Tempest being that. And then of course, because we're doing mono element, we have to go with, well, we don't have to, but this was something that was brought up, is how do you make mono element work, especially in regards to using the gemstone that goes along with that element. So, we're going to hopefully answer some of those questions now. Alright, so there's a few things you have to keep in mind when you're running mono element, and that is that there are going to be now, since you are running a single element, there are two groups of enemies that will actually resist your damage, so you don't want to see them show up. I'm of course going to load up Shu as my first council member just to get him out of the way, but of course he resists his own element. So now what we really want to see is we want to see Atlas show up somewhere in our 3, but we don't want to see Zeal show up because she will also resist wind. So let's see what happens. Well, so that's about as bad as it can get. So let's hope that things get a little bit better as we go along. Now, what I probably should have done is just move forward without picking a council member and just seeing what the game gave me. So, your first priority is, of course, going to be other wind... Why did I just go back to the same dead end? What the hell's wrong with me? Yeah, your first priority is going to be other wind elemental spells. Preferably ones that do something just a little bit different. So, Airborne Slam would be just magnificent right now. Now, as you saw, we aren't seeing any other wind elemental spells, but we are seeing some high priority upgrades. Air Spinner, which will basically double its effect, and Furious Tempest is going to make it so that you can get a full charge in like a fraction of the time. So hey, good stuff. Good stuff all around. And as you can see, Air Spinner is doing a good job of keeping us protected in a full-on circle. So we... So one of the things that I would like to see is Airborne Slam. I think I already mentioned that, but I'm bringing it up again. Mostly because not only will it be something that focuses a little bit on power, but it's also is one of those fun jump arcana that I really like working with. So, I'm going to take Mercenary's Dagger with a grain of salt. It's still early enough in the run where I'm very unsure about whether or not that would be a good idea. I'm leaning towards not really. Why, yes, I could have used the portal, but that would just deprive you guys of all these wonderful portraits that I'm smashing. Alright, now what do we have up here? Alright, so to save us some money later on down the road, we're going to take that. I also have a soft spot for fairies. Now, I was hoping to see something like the Analytical Monocle, but oh well. Now, the Relic Rewards card doesn't necessarily put more money in our pocket, but it does save us money, and that's worth quite a lot. Ow! And there we go. But another strong component in doing a mono-element run, or any elemental run for that matter, is knowing what exactly your spells do. So, for that purpose, I would suggest that when you're doing mono-element, well, your first step is to have every spell of that element so you know what exactly your choices are. Not only that, but so you have some idea of what you like and dislike. Because my spell choices might not exactly be what someone else's spell choices would be. Some people might really like Severing Claws, and again, I can kinda see it. I guess it would be Severing Slash, but again, you get the idea. And this will increase stun values on my stuff, so definitely take. Come on. As you can see, it's really difficult for those orbs to even get in on me. Alright, so as I ended... So this seems like a good time to bring up another portion of doing a mono element run. One of the strategies that I have brought up to me when it comes to doing mono element frequently is take the Avarice road because you're going to need the extra money for purchasing the Arcana that you need. Now, if you're me, you know that Iris fucking hates you. And she typically doesn't want to give you things that are going to be that helpful. So, with that being the case, I know for myself that I'm not going to be spending as much money on Arcana as I normally would. So I actually advise against the Avarice robe. Because by the end of the run, you're going to have way more money than you know what to do. I know that just sounds like a lame excuse, but trust me, even if you're not as unlucky as I am, because you're only looking at spells for one element, there is a good chance that you're not going to be spending a ton of money on Arcana. And that has nothing to do with good luck or bad luck. That just has to do with you're only interested in one Arcana. So the usefulness, so Iris's usefulness is a bit limited. That doesn't mean that you don't go visit Iris. It just means that you don't necessarily want to save all your money for Iris's shop because you're probably not going to be buying much of it. There we go. Okay, as you can see, we have nearly 300 coins, and that's after nearly spending ourselves down on the previous floor. Let's see, what do we have here? I see a Magician's Top Hat. That and the Chaos Visor could both be useful. And since we know Iris doesn't have anything all that worthwhile, we're going to take both of these. Now, just because Iris doesn't directly have a Wind Elemental Arcana, it doesn't mean that we should entirely ignore Iris outright, because Nocturne is here. And since we need all the resources we can get, let's quick check in with Iris to see what she has for sale. Alright, so we have a 125 there, that's perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish up the floor. I'm a genius. God, I hate this fight. Crush Colossus is very not fun. Okay, that's a basic. We don't want that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to buy this Ward of Lightning. And we're going to bring it over to Nocturne and see if he trades us something better. It's a gamble, of course, but I would say it's still better than nothing. Now, unfortunately, my boy has decided that he also doesn't want to give us any mid-base spells, but we can temporarily take something of a different element entirely, so not even necessarily so long as it fits with what we're already doing, which is critical hits. In this case, it's just we have Zeal coming up, and something, a little something extra to help out against her is definitely going to be better than just going in and just getting gobsmacked because she won't take a lot of damage from what we're doing. Oh, whoops. I made an oopsie. There we go. I don't want Field Berserk. Alright. And the idea that I took Frost Scimitar leads nicely into the next point I wanted to make about doing mono elements. You might be under a challenge, but unless you're under the like very strict version of it, where you can't even look at spells of another element, don't be afraid to take spells of other elements to help support you while you're trying to get your seven of one elements. Smooth. Did that just right. Okay, so now she has an upgrade to Razor Burst as well as Fading Petal and Vortex Veil. So we know that we don't necessarily care about Fading Petal, but Vortex Veil is a great protective arcana. So we definitely want that. So plan on spending some money on that is going to be very important. There we go. So now you're thinking, now you're probably thinking, okay, you just said don't take the Avarice Robe, but now we're in a situation where we could really use a whole bunch of money, so why shouldn't I take Avarice? Mostly because you're giving up on other stat bonuses that could be very useful for your build. Oh, and look at that, the game just decided to be nice to me and drop me over. So, Storm Draft. Yeah, don't be afraid to take freebies when you see them. Alright, so the reason why you want to wait a little bit is to see what Anders is selling. And the answer is these things. Are any of them particularly useful for our build? I would argue that Singing Bowl is amazing. Equester Cap is a personal favorite. He's got stuff. But remember, our top priority is Vortex Veil right now. So, save your money for that and see what you have afterwards. So that would be my next piece of information for you. Is you want to focus heavily on resourcefulness and prioritization. Sometimes you have to give up something that you really like in order to grab something that you really need. In this case, we need the Wind Arcana to use Nev's, quartz. Now, even though the Equester Cap would be great, look at it this way. As soon as Nev's Quartz activates, I'll have that movement speed bonus, probably in spades, because Nev's Quartz will likely have a much higher speed boost upon activation. Thanks, guys. I don't like that particular battle chamber, because even when you are prepared for it, you're still probably going to get knocked in the pit a couple of times. It's almost a guarantee. Don't mind if it is. Alright, Crimson Clover is a huge get for us. There. Okay, that was painful. Now, if I had the money for it, I would definitely get the upgraded Razor Burst. As is, do we go ahead and buy Fading Petal to activate the Sapphire, or Quartz, thing? I would say, given the parameters of the run... See, I personally don't like Fading Petal, but I will take it to activate this. Now we've got a 20% movement rate bonus. See, the one thing that the Equester Cap can do for us that this isn't, is that it helps you reach a full sprint faster. But, like I said, this is now very much making up for any movement speed loss we suffered by not taking the Equester Cap in that scene. And now all of our Wind Arcana are causing slow, which is a major get for us. Because that means that even Air Spinner is causing slow. And that is big. It means that this is causing slow. So the obvious get for us now would be the Hunter's Stiletto, because we have just an automatic, like, big damage bonus coming, because we can just automatically slow any of our enemies. It's also a 20% evasion rate, which is a nice defense. So as you can see, even though these aren't the greatest of wind spells out there, they're still doing plenty enough, because we now have that huge bonus from the quartz. And that should make up for the loss of damage that we're going to be receiving against Siege. Ultimately, when you're doing mono elements, like, this is already a game that really wants you to think, that really wants you to focus on your prioritization and resourcefulness. But it's even more so when you're doing mono element, because now you're limiting what resources you're going to pick up. Which, you know, for some people, that's fine. It's easy to do it. It's easy to make those decisions. But for those who need help with it, that's kind of why I'm doing this, because there are certain things that you just want to prioritize more than others. I don't know if I have any melee arcana that are gonna suffer from this. Maybe Vortex Veil, but everything else is a projectile. Oops. Or if they're not projectile, at least they're not melee. But make no mistake, doing mono element is a challenge run in and of itself. It only stops becoming so once you've activated the gem of your choice. So, you know, tip number one for doing mono element, it really helps to have all the spells of that element. That way you can at least practice with them in your house, kind of get a feel for them and understand what exactly it is you're going to be doing. And of course, you would offer to upgrade the one I'm actively not using. Thanks, Iris. Alright, so Anders is probably over here. I'm so rarely at full health that doesn't even matter. We will take the raspberry cookie box, though. Oh, wow. Now, because the Fading Petal upgrade is very much not a high priority, I'm just going to leave it, take this money with me, and hopefully get some good stuff on stage 3-1. Yeah, unfortunately, slow doesn't do much to Zeal. Owie. Ah, lame. There we go. Not a bad 2-cycle, actually. And as much as I love cascading Blitz, remember, can't take it on this run. You've decided to be a specialist. You're a specialist, Harry. So some other hints that were magician's outfit. All right, baby, we are doing it. So some other things to remember for mono elements. There are other relics that were designed to really help out with mono elements outside of the jewels. But the one that you should focusing on is... Really, asshole? You're just gonna interrupt me like that? But no, if there's one you should be focusing on, it's Royal Flush. The damage bonus that you get from Royal Flush is huge. And I can't oversell that one enough. If you're doing mono element, you want Royal Flush. And if you see Royal Flush, I would say that would even get priority over like another Arcana of that element. Because that damage bonus is going to be big and it's paying you off for being a specialist. Obviously, some restrictions may apply. If you're only one Arcana off from... If you're only one Arcana off, let's say, from having the gem activated, then by all means, do that first. But you definitely want to make sure that you get that Royal Flush if you see it. Now, I'm not seeing it because I'm an unlucky bitch. Alright, Lotus Froststone is great. And it's also one of essentially 2 ways you're going to get any other type of elemental damage on a mono element run. The other, of course, being Cabby Sweets. Those will net you some other elemental damage for a mono element run, and that won't count against your jewel of choice, so you'll be sitting pretty. Yeah, that 20% evade chance, I mean, it only says 20%, but that evade chance is bigger than you think. And if you break it down, 20% sounds like, I don't know, it's double 10%, but, I mean, I'm not sure. But when you look at it like this, you're going to be dodging automatically one out of every 5 attacks. That sounds a little bit more impressive. So, something to keep in mind. Do you have anything else I want? Yeah, I kind of want the jewelry box. So, what you just noticed right there was me failing to take into account something about the enemy. And that is that this particular enemy opens with teleportation. So, So throwing out a big charge attack that he's just going to automatically evade, not too smart. But at this point, we're pretty much set for the rest of the run. The Nev's Jewel runs tends to become a little overpowered. I think the only time where I would argue against that is with the Earth one, because all it's doing is making so you can take hits better. Now, I could very well be wrong about that. I haven't done a Mono Earth run. I was gonna say I haven't done one in a long time, but I'm not sure if I even have one. Greetings, sir. Do I have anything that I want to give you? Not really. Like, at this point, the only thing I would want to give up would be the Relic Rewards card, and I would give that up for an effective relic. But instead of selling Cremire the card, what I can do is get one more purchase off of it. Smooth. Smooth me. God, Lancers are the worst. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't see a lot here that I really want. Nothing here seems like it's going to be a game changer. So, leave that alone. What about the Ironclad card holder? I mean, yeah, I would buy a Ridge wallet, but I'm not feeling like I need the extra health. Or at least not the extra maximum health. No, what I need is more concurrent health. Yeah, don't be afraid to take the time to aim more properly. Like, just because I don't use the control stick to aim very often, doesn't mean that I shouldn't. And indeed, sometimes it is useful to have the more flexible aim. Oftentimes I don't need it. Sometimes I do. That is something that I'll want to be covering in the movement and aiming chapter of the eventual guide that I do. Oh, smooth. Look at what I done did. Like, I know some of you probably thought I forgot about that, but no, I'm just busy. And I do work a full-time job, cut me some slack here. Here we go. Now, you'll notice the damage difference against this boss because we are because this boss isn't going to resist the elements anything. But they do have dumb bullshit like that makes them immune to damage. Yeah, whenever he transforms into a metallic shape like that, he's actually immune to damage. Yeah, that's what you get. So I can see the damage difference between an enemy that resists your attacks and one that takes just neutral damage is big. Because it might not seem like it's a big difference upon a single hit, but the damage, as soon as you start taking into account all the rest of your hits, like your total damage, that's what you need to be looking at. Because your damage going from like 8 to 6 doesn't seem like it's going to affect much. But then you remember that's a lot of 8s being turned into a lot of 6s. So to answer the question about how I'm getting so much signature charge, that would be a combination of this and the idea that when you do more damage, you get more signature charge. Well, I do like the dragons. And now my only regret is that I can't afford to buy Vesa. But I can for you. There we go. Now the only downside is that the dragons already cause slow, so they're not gaining anything per se. And there we go. Oh, that was poorly timed on my behalf. I knew he was about to move, but I didn't think he was going to move that quickly. But let's take a moment to appreciate the idea that not only are we a mono element specialist, but we're a mono element specialist dressed in the most dapper about this. Of which it seems like I might still lose this run because of the damn Null Flash agents and their ability to control space. Yeah, that was not cool. Alright, so let's quick go over the tips. 1. Choosing the right robe. For some people, Avarice might be the right robe. I recommend choosing your robe based upon what you know your element is good at. If your element is good at doing rapid hits, go with a critical hit build. If your element is good at just single hit damage, choose something like Rule or Venture. If you aren't sure what your element is really good at, or you're doing some sort of hybrid build, then take Hope. If you need the added defense, then take Patience or Grit. And, you take, Tempo or the other green robe if you're just too cool for school. And you take Pride when you hate yourself. Know what your element does. Try to have all of the spells of that element so you know not only what your choices are, but what's going to synergize well together. Like in this case, Furious Tempest worked out very well with the Blurring Falconry and the Razor Burst because it can hold enemies still while I charge up the Tempest. Oh, sorry about that. Your priorities are going to be spells of the, or sorry, I should say your priorities when it comes to what items to purchase should be spells of your chosen elements as pretty much your top priority unless you see Royal Flush, and then just whatever relics are going to help you out with your run. And like I said, some people will prefer Avarice for the extra gold, but I say just be careful with your spending. Because you're not going to be buying as much from Iris as you normally would be, I think it's better to have a robe that's going to boost either your offensive or your defensive stats. I, of course, prefer offensive. That's just me. And then, just beyond that, it's all about the roguelite usuals, resourcefulness and patience and understanding. Mostly resourcefulness. Sometimes you just have to work with what you're given. Like I had said earlier that I wasn't thinking about taking Stormdraft, but once the game gave it to me, I said, all right, I'm going to have to learn how this is going to work with my run. So you have to. And that's where the understanding of all of the spells of your chosen element is going to come in, because you need to know what these spells can and can't do, and that is going to feed into how well you can plan out the rest of your run. How good is your resourcefulness? I can't stress it enough. Resourcefulness is probably the best thing that you can have going into a run in any roguelike game, and especially this one. So hopefully all of those tips helped. I'm open to other tips and suggestions that you guys may have. And yeah, that's about all there is to it. At this point, I'm rambling, so thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate you spending some of your free time with me. Drop me a like, leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel. Links to my social media will be in the description of the video. And I will catch you guys in the next one. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and I will be seeing you. Hey, should I just stall for another 48 seconds so that the video goes to exactly 1 hour? I mean, I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I mean, it'd be funny. Just go for an arbitrary amount of time just so you can say your video is exactly this length. I mean, I knew this video was going to go long. I absolutely knew it was going to go long, I just didn't know how long. And yet, it still isn't that much above the rest of my videos. Can you guys hear the birds outside? Can you hear them? Oh yeah. Those are good birds. But my birds are the best birds. You can't convince me otherwise. Okay guys, bye!